to Tom's Aviation Weekly News for this week, which is the 22nd February 2026. Let's start with the North American region. Recently, U.S. House legislation addressed the aviation safety recommendation issued after the fatal collision between an American Eagle CRJ and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter at Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. in January of last year. This legislation addresses a series of deficiencies in the FAA safety culture, enhancements for air traffic control training and procedures, and strengthening the airspace around Reagan Airport. Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. has one of the tightest airspaces on the planet. It is one of the busiest, which is further away, handles the bulk of international traffic into the capital of the U.S. The approach requires a low-level flight above the Potomac River, tight operations, and a lot of government buildings would have airspace restrictions of their own, and a sharp turn approaching to one of the runways at this airport. Keep in mind, takeoff is the same, as the aircraft has to climb really high and a sharp turn to avoid infringing on multiple airspaces, because multiple buildings like the Pentagon, Lincoln Memorial, the White House, and Defense Intelligence Agency, they have their own airspace restrictions, which can make the movement around this airport extremely difficult. Here is a quick summary of this fatal collision before landing. An American Eagle CRJ-700ER operated by PSA Airlines collided with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter in January 2025. Due to flawed placement of the helicopter's flight path, high workload for ATC, and over-reliance on the see and avoid principle, 67 people sadly lost their lives across both aircraft. The final report of this accident is on the NTSB website if you want to check it out. The National Transport Safety Board, or NTSB, determined this accident was caused by safety lapses from the FAA allowing helicopters to fly close to airports without safeguards to separate them from arriving or departing aircraft, and a failure to act on moving helicopter traffic away from the airport. There are two pieces of legislation addressing this. The Rotor Act, which unanimously passed by the Senate in December 2025, requiring all aircraft operators to equip their entire fleet with automatic dependent surveillance broadcast systems, or ADSB, by the end of 2031. So what is ADSB? Is the same system that you can see on Flight Radar 24 and AirNav Radar, or even the ADSB Exchange site, which is also available as well if you want to take a look. But that's the same system where a lot of airports use to track flights arriving in and out. Meanwhile, a new House bill called the Alert Act is currently going through the votes. This bill called for a comprehensive independent audit of the FAA safety culture and safety management system mandates, improve helicopter route designs, and addresses several concerns about military aviation practices. While this bill is voted on soon, once all proposals are met, it hopefully allows safer operations at one of the tightest airspaces in the US. So currently this new bill is going to, first and foremost, it will break it down. It's going to have an independent audit of the FAA's safety culture and safety management system, and also addressing about the helicopter operations, ensuring that these helicopters won't fly too close, but also maintain a lot of distance when operating close into really tight airspaces. Moving up north, Canadian operators are decreasing operations to the US. New operations between the two countries have been stable for a while, though the recently sour relations between them have led to a drop in travel between Canada and the US. The shift in travel demand forces Canadian operators to change their operations for certain routes. As demand for the US dropped, airlines reacted by cutting routes. Air Transat pulled the plug on US operations from certain destinations like Orlando and Fort Lauderdale in May and June of this year. WestJet followed along with Air Transat by cutting services to 16 destinations in the US, focusing their operations to new destinations like Europe, Mexico, and the Caribbean markets. A spokesperson for Air Transat states that the US remains very marginal today, with only 2 of its 67 destinations located in the US. They noted adjustments is part of a proactive management of their capacity as they focus efforts on markets where Air Transat is best positioned and allows them to optimize the deployments of their resources. They'll also announce a winter schedule soon, so keep an eye out for that one. And of course, a spokesperson for WestJet said that they're reducing the full-year transporter flying by close to 10%. They saw a noticeable decline in transporter travel demand throughout 2025. As such, WestJet has redeployed its fleet by increasing capacities on routes which Canadians want to fly. Currently, the only operator right now that hasn't made a decision just yet is Air Canada, and probably Porter Airlines still operates flights between Canada and the US, but with the shrinking demand, the airline may follow other domestic operators in reducing US operations. Now, this demand was starting to shift, so last month, capacity for Canada to US flights dropped by 10% compared to a year earlier. Canadian travelers made 1.6 million return trips to the US last month, which is a 24.3% reduction from last year. Soon, airlines must reorganize their fleets and routes to cater for more favorable destinations that secure long-term profits. As for right now, Air Canada increased operations to Mexican cities by 18% compared to before. With no current information on their route changes yet, we will have to wait and see. So currently right now, the US relations with Canada is starting to get a little bit into a mix, as you know, like the president had think about Canada as like 51st state, which already angered a lot of Canadians. So ended up the demand was so dropped that they had to literally cut a lot of routes. A recent merger is preparing for two Mexican ultra low-cost carriers, and it's going to become Mexico's largest ULCC group. Recently, two Mexican low-cost operators, Viva and Volaris, marked their 20th anniversary of operations with a merger. Once successful, it would change the aviation landscape of North and Latin America as well. From 2006 to 2025, domestic traffic in Mexico exploded tremendously from 6 million to 122 million passengers respectively. Both airlines have a massive narrow-body fleet, which uses the A320 family, which is like the A320-200, the Neo, A321 current engine option, and A321neo. Of course, Volaris does use the A319 before, so now this merger is not like Korean Air acquiring the Asiana deal, which that deal has been gone through so many legislations before even getting in. Both airlines will operate as separate brands, but their core operations will become one massive group that will oversee the entire operation. This merger got praise from Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, although it will go through regulatory proceedings before the entire group starts operating both airlines as one. Both Viva and Volaris recently adopted new changes to meet developing passenger expectations, attracting a wider mix of leisure and value-focused passengers. Now, the two Mexican carriers, Viva and Volaris, once merged, well, technically they're still two carriers, but the group will be competitive against big dominant player Aeromexico and the recent return of military-owned Mexicana, which operates Embraer E2s. So I think Latin America operations, it's going to be a unique sight to see, but I think only time can tell for this really big merger. Moving on to the European region, it is tricky to navigate a sustainable target without penalized heavily. This is really notorious cases. Now, with many European carriers wanting to reach a net zero emission target by 2050 and using sustainable aircraft fuel, or SAF for short, supplies increasing, airlines are still facing penalties for not meeting the emission requirements. In 2012, Europe launched the Emission Trading System, or ETS. This system puts pressure on airlines telling to invest into sustainable programs or face heavy fines. Despite delays, the program came into effect in 2014. Airlines navigate through this by investing heavily in SAF, which I mentioned before. SAF produces fewer carbon emissions than regular jet fuel. Here's a problem for many airlines wanting to de-emission their operation. Managing the supply of sustainable air fuel is really difficult. Back then, the ETS allowed free emission allowances for airlines. These carriers obliged to monitor, report, and verify their emissions, surrendering allowances based on one emission allowance equating to 1 ton of carbon dioxide emitted. Recently, at the start of 2026, the free emission allowance was removed, and airlines must purchase allowances for their emissions. Airlines operating in the European Economic Area, Switzerland, and UK must purchase their allowance. A spokesperson for Dutch airline KLM, approximately 25 million euros cost. In 2024, these amounts increased to 150 million euros, about 152 million euros. They expect the ETS cost to rise to approximately 325 million euros per year by 2030 in fines. Of course, airlines invested heavily into sustainable air fuel for their operations. In 2023, Wizz Air partnered with Firefly, a UK-based biofuel company, to supply the airline with 525 tons of SAF over a 15-year period starting from 2028. Interestingly, KLM, also a heavy buyer of SAF, investing in a factory in Deutschland in the Netherlands. However, as new aviation fuel, it requires a lot of production, testing, and certification before it's allowed to be pumped into planes. It doesn't take months. It takes years for that process to happen. Under the Refuel EU aviation mandate, fuel suppliers must provide airline operators with SAF certificates. These certificates should contain the technical data required to verify SAF use so airlines can submit records to national authorities. Simple as that. But the problem is right here. Sustainable air fuel is really hard to get and costs 10 times as much as traditional jet fuel. So it's rare and expensive. That is one big investment that will be tricky to get back for these airlines. Monserrat Barriga, Director General of ERA, issued a statement noting that ERA member airlines have been acting in good faith to increase their use of SAF and embrace other sustainability schemes to meet emission targets. However, without timely, accurate, harmonized documentations from fuel suppliers, a direct barrier is created between and financial support that makes SAF uptake possible. She also predicted that SAF allowances ETS allowance reserved for an essential part of closing the price gap between SAF and conventional fuel. Delays and inconsistency at the supplier levels put millions of euros at risk and leave airlines penalized for delays that they did not cause. Barriga concluded that 2026 will be a big test for airlines as they face the cutting of ETS allowance. She said if Europe was serious about scaling up the use of SAF, then the administrative framework needs to be improved, with airlines simply not left to carry the consequences of bottlenecks elsewhere in the supply chain. Now, this might be leverage for fuel hunting, but the production of SAF does not reach the level in abundance. It will hurt airlines' financial situations for long term. This is really important as, airlines are trying to work their way to improve sustainability using different methods, and SAF is one of the more common tricks. But unfortunately, if sustainable air fuel hasn't reached a supply that's really commonly used, this will be tricky for airlines because they not only have to cover for the expensive fines that could wreck the finances for years to come. So it's not a pretty good look. Next up is Airbus is scaling back production of their most popular aircraft. Now, don't worry, Airbus will not kill the A320neo family. That is way too popular, and it is the most popular aircraft. Airbus won't kill the A320neo family. They won't. Literally, that sell them like hotcakes, as is the most popular variant of aircraft sold at the European aerospace giant. However, some issues have come up, forcing the manufacturer to scale back production a bit. It all has to do with one engine type. Back then, Airbus has proposed before Airbus wanted to produce 75 A320neo family jets in a month by 2026 and 2027. Now, the 75 jet production target has been delayed until late 2027. The engine that's causing all the bottleneck? Pratt and Whitney geared turbofan engines. Pratt and Whitney supplies the geared turbofan or GTF engines to Airbus for their A320neo and E220 family, while supplying Embraer for the E2 family as well. These engines steeped in controversy thanks to poor reliability rates, unexpected rapid degradation, and struggles to operate in certain climate. Airbus CEO Guillaume Faury said that Pratt and Whitney's failure to commit to the number of engines ordered by Airbus is negatively impacting this year's guidance and ramp-up trajectory. As a consequence, they now expect to reach the rate of between 70 to 75 aircraft a month by the end of 2027, stabilizing at 75 thereafter. Now, Airbus really want to get those delivery targets reached, so they narrowly squeezed 10 deliveries in a single day for 2025, with 10 A321neo jets delivered to many operators. Engine shortage like this will hamper the delivery process for airlines and force Airbus to change their delivery targets, probably lower. It's not just Pratt & Whitney engine issues pressuring Airbus, but the lack of CFM LEAP 1A engines, which also powers the A320neo family, as they are not synchronized with the production process. Some engines delivered earlier, but some engines delivered too late, so that's why the installment rate were mixed. Thankfully, CFM caught up with the production process for 2026 as more jets were delivered. Now, of course, for those who don't know, this is not news for operators using the GTF engine, as they face lengthy wait times for engine repairs, with backlogs stretching back a year for engine change. Pratt & Whitney CEO Chris Callio said the output was up 39% in the fourth quarter, which included a 16% reduction in turnaround time and a significant increase in repair volume. Even with these improvements in turnaround time and increased output, getting these current A320neo GTF engines repaired safely in a timely fashion is urgently needed. And this is not the first time Airbus cut delivery targets. Previously, in early 2025, they had to cut delivery targets for the A320neo family due to manufacturing issues with the A320 fuselage. Now, literally, if I would say, oh, it's just an Airbus issue, Pratt & Whitney engines have been powering a lot of global operators, including operators in the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Pacific with these engines. So this kind of grounding has been really kicking a lot of operators with their A320neos. Now, before we go into the Asia Pacific region, hope you guys like this news, and comment down below which is your favorite one, and subscribe to the channel for more weekly news, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out for these cool aviation content. Let's talk with the Asia Pacific region, and we got some big billion-dollar orders. We're talking billions of dollars worth of aircraft orders. Vietnam Airlines, which operates solely Airbus narrow-body fleets consisting of the A320 family, which includes the A320neo, A321-200, and A321neo, finalized the purchase agreement, turning an MOU to a firm order for 50 Boeing 737 MAX 8s. These MAX 8s will operate on domestic routes in short to medium haul international sectors. Now, why did Vietnam Airlines switch from an Airbus dominant narrow body fleet towards a mix of both manufacturer, flexibility, and of course, keeping an active fleet on standby, and probably improvements to cabins as well. Now, Vietnam Airlines does operate 20 A321neos. All of them have Pratt and Whitney powered aircraft, which already caused a bottleneck in their operation thanks to these jets sitting idle on the ground waiting for spare parts. By having a mixed fleet, the airline can operate with better efficiency and not worry about one of their aircraft type being taken offline for repairs. Chairman of Board Directors of Vietnam Airlines, Dang Ngọc Hoa, said the airline is taking a comprehensive and forward-looking approach to strengthening its capabilities to support long-term growth ambitions. He added that the investment in 50 Boeing 737-8 aircraft marks a significant step of building a modern, fuel-efficient fleet. This agreement also deepens the long-standing strategic partnership between Vietnam Airlines and Boeing. Stephanie Pope, President and CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, noted that they are proud to support Vietnam Airlines as they pair the 737 MAX with the 787 Dreamliners to further scale regional networks and strengthen connectivity across Asia. The 737 MAX family, primarily the MAX 8, which will be delivered to Vietnam's flag carrier between 2030 and 2032, uses CFM LEAP 1B engines. Adding one more engine to the fleet can add a bit of complexity to the maintenance costs, but this engine has not faced a single grounding compared to the GTF engines. Deliveries for the first MAX 8 will start in 2030, and we hopefully expect something great for the airline. To top up the massive MAX 8 firm order, another Vietnamese carrier is going big with Boeing, primarily the 787-9, with 40 jets fueling their growth. Sun PhuQuoc Airways, which is a brand new carrier that's just a year old, announced an order up to 40 Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners to fuel their long-haul operations and build the wide-body backbone for the airline. Chairman of Sun Group, the airline's Vietnam-based parent company, Dang Minh Trung, said that this partnership with Boeing establishes a strong foundation for building a world-class airline that operates in sync with their tourism ecosystem. He noted the Boeing 787-9 is the most suitable aircraft to realize their vision, bringing PhuQuoc to the world. It is no surprise that the Boeing 787 has been the backbone for many Southeast Asian carriers. The Singapore Airlines Group, that includes Scoot and Singapore Airlines. Scoot uses the 787-8 and 9 for long-haul low-cost operations, while Singapore Airlines uses the 787-10 for trunk routes, but also busy routes between Australia and Singapore. Vietnam Airlines uses the 787-9 to handle long-haul operations and also domestic operations. Same as but the 787-10 uses domestic operations and trunk routes in Asia as well. Thai Airways is expanding their reach in the long-haul European market with the 787-9. In other parts of Asia Pacific, Japanese carriers like ANA and JAL, or Japan Airlines, uses the 787 for both domestic and long-haul flight. Qantas and Air New Zealand also use their 787-9s for trans-Pacific operations from Oceania. Korean Air uses their -9s and -10s for trans-Pacific and long-haul European routes, plus occasional Southeast Asia destinations. Lastly, EVA Airways flies their 787-9 and 10 from Taipei to Europe, Australia, and the States, with their longest route flying from Taipei to Houston. Stephanie Pope from Boeing expressed excitement to work with Sun PhuQuoc Airways, noting the 787-9's unmatched range, fuel efficiency, and passenger comfort will give the airline flexibility to open new long-haul markets. While Sun PhuQuoc's Dreamliner order is massive, it is officially classified right now as an order up to 40 jets. I will try to catch on with the news. Reporting the news as the airline grows. Apparently, both of these orders have adding up into billions of dollars for Boeing, and this already taps in for the long haul market for the A350. So this new order actually doesn't matter. Already, both orders allow Boeing to be more competitive against Airbus, tapping the 787 directly into the A350's long haul wide body market. This is really unique because currently the largest A350 operator in Southeast Asia is Singapore Airlines, which also use the A350-900 for their long-haul operations. So I think the competitive landscape will grow a little bit bigger. All right, Thank you for watching Tom's Aviation Weekly News. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Comment down below what ones you like the most. And give a like to the video. Subscribe to the channel for more. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.